Hey everyone, it's Adam Helfand from Hire It Done. Thanks for tuning in to the podcast today. We're going to be talking about insulation, how to save energy, and everything about your house that will keep it warm in the winter and keep you actually cool in the summertime. I've got Tom Mackey from Dana Insulation. He's our expert today. And Tom, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Adam. Good to see you.
Yeah, so, insulation. Tell me, give me the quick intro on insulation as it
kind of a
applies
boring
to
home improvement, isn't it?
Yeah.
The old out of sight, out of mind home improvement. Dana Insulation has been very successful over the past 48 years of helping folks reduce energy costs, making their homes far more comfortable.
So wait, Dana Insulation been in business 48 years?
We're beginning our 48th year right now.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank
Did you
you.
know 96% of all contractors fail in the first 5 years?
Yeah, the first 5 years were a challenge.
How long have you been there now?
47 years.
Holy.
I started the business.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so, what was insulation like 40 years ago?
There's not even a remote comparison to the science and techniques used when I started out versus today. Things have changed entirely. The biggest of all things is now that closed cell foam has become the monster in our industry.
Okay, and that's because it's the most efficient.
It's very efficient.
So, well, that's interesting because I remember when I started in the renovation business, it wasn't 48 years ago, I would tear out walls and there'd be newspapers.
That's right.
There'd be cotton.
That's right.
Anything, building materials stuff in
And
there.
we still see that.
You still do to this
see
day. So closed cell foam insulation obviously is the newest, latest and greatest with the highest efficiency. Can you give the audience basic knowledge of what that really means in easy terms?
Yeah, sure. Density of all insulation products determines its efficiency. So our value is the gauge in which you judge the efficiency of insulation in general. So you have your fiberglass material, which a lot of people refer to as the Pink Panther.
Correct.
Unfortunately, that's the least effective material. Then we have blown cellulose, very, very effective, can be installed in both walls and attics.
And it's energy, it's green, basically.
Oh, it's very green. It's
good for the environment.
It's a paper product.
Recycled.
It's being recycled. It's a great product, one we've been very successful with over all these years. And then in the last 20 years, foam has become the monster.
So is foam more expensive?
Yeah, it's very expensive. On the front end, you're paying a lot more money, but on the back end, you're reaping the rewards much quicker.
So the return on investment or the payback period's quicker.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense to me. So, here we are in the Midwest, cold weather in the wintertime. You have 4 seasons. So let's just say, since we're in the winter right now, your furnace turns on, heats the house. Scientifically, heat travels towards the cold. What stops the heat from leaving your house? Drywall, then the insulation, then the exterior, and all of that slows it down. But if there's no insulation, it goes really fast.
That's right. And the easy gauge for a typical homeowner, any homeowner, they don't have to be sharp on the science of insulation. Just keep a monitor on how often that furnace is going on and off, on and off. And you'll quickly see that you're spending a lot of money that you probably don't need to spend.
So more insulation installed properly will make your furnace work less. And when it works less, you spend more energy, less energy.
You're spending less money.
Right.
And that translates in the summer months just as much as it does in the winter months.
Well, yeah, cool. The heat tries to get in the house.
That's right.
And you want to keep the cool air in the summertime, but in the winter, you want to keep the heat in the house.
That's exactly right.
So it's a good tip. So listen or take a timer to how long your furnace goes on and off.
Yes.
So if a homeowner has the furnace set to 74 and it's at 73, it never gets to 74. Is that a sign of bad insulation?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And what a lot of folks are unaware of, just because it's not a published, well-known fact, is there were no codes in the state of Michigan up until 1977 was the first attic code.
Oh,
and then not till 82 did they come up with a wall code. So homes built prior to 77 and 82 were dramatically under-insulated based on today's codes and today's science.
So is it common, Tom, where you are called out to a house that's like 10 years old and it's got really poor insulation?
Not so much in the exterior walls, but the attic for sure. The basement bond or rim joist area is under insulated at the time of new build. So there are upgrades available for those homes as well. And although you don't need as much wall insulation in that age group of homes, you definitely need your attic upgraded as well as the basement.
So, you know what? Let's break down the house to where the insulation should be priority number one. So let's start in the basement. Obviously, a house with a basement's underground, so the walls typically don't need. But when the wall goes above grade, there's what you call the bond plate, which is the perimeter around that. That should have insulation in it?
That's 100% correct. That if you were to look at Consumers Energy, DTE, Semco, any other
local power company,
all the power companies in our area, they will tell you the second most important place to really upgrade your insulation is that bond plate that you're talking about.
Okay, so in those cavities that are in between the joists, and it's the exterior perimeter of the walls called the bond plate. Do you just stuff insulation in there? Do you spray foam? What is, if I said to you, Dana Insulation, give me the best insulation in that area, what would you prescribe for me?
I'm going to put 2 inches. If I'm going to remove the current fiberglass, if it's builder's grade, I'm going to put 2 inches worth of foam insulation in. Then I'm going to put fiberglass insulation back in. Sometimes we can preserve the builder's grade application, sometimes we can't. But the correct application, or what's going to carry the heavy load and make your home more efficient and more comfortable, is the 2 inches of foam.
So that 2 inches of foam, when you spray it in there, that actually expands.
That's right.
Okay, so, and based on R value, which is how they measure the efficiency of insulation, that 2 inches, because it's foam, is much more efficient than 4 inches of fiberglass.
That's absolutely right.
So when you add them together, you magnify the efficiency.
That's right. That's 100% correct.
So Tom, if I'm in the basement of my house and I know that I have to do the bond plate, but I'm also planning on renovating and finishing my basement, how important is it to make sure that that's taken care of first?
Out of 1 to 10, it's a 10.
It has to be.
Oh, you have to do it. It's foolish and remiss if you don't. Your basement and the first floor are going to remain uncomfortable, and you're going to spend all this money and be disappointed at the results.
So if you do seal the bond plate around the whole exterior perimeter of your house, that alone will save you money.
Oh, again, don't take my word for it. Check with the utility companies who will publish it, and they tell you it's the cold air infiltration underneath those floors. The comfort level has changed dramatically, and I can't really give you a percentage. A properly insulated home is going to save you substantial amounts of money.
I absolutely know. I know that, and I agree with you. So, is it expensive if someone just wanted to do the bond plate properly in a standard home?
In my way, I'm an old timer, so to me everything's expensive. When you go pay $5 for a loaf of bread, to me it's ridiculous. Yeah. So I'm sure there are those who'll say, "Wow, I have never thought it would be that much." And that, on the other hand, the last 10 homes I've been in just this week have all said to me, "Wow, I expected it to be a lot more." So I don't know quite how to answer.
Okay, no, you know what? It's affordable.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: whatever they're spending, let's just say the average home is $3,000 to do the bond plate. I don't know if that's a good number or not.
Can be.
Okay. Once it's done, if they didn't change anything else in the house, and they got that done, would the gas bill go down 10%?
Oh, I think that's reasonable. You can anticipate that.
So $300 a month.
And the comfort is going to be improved dramatically.
It's comfort, yeah. Well, that's a big part. But if it's 10%, let's say my bill is $300 a month. 10% is $30 a month. So in a year, it's $300 I've already saved. Yeah. So you can accelerate the savings quickly.
Well, and not only that, there are incentives by the utility companies, the rebates, and the federal government is giving federal tax credits.
So there still is rebates available. So if someone wants to do that and they need help with that, is that something you as Dana Insulation will assist?
We absolutely take care of all of it.
So you'll do all the paperwork?
Yes.
Oh, that's fabulous.
Yes.
So it's good to know. So if you're a homeowner and you need insulation done in your house, it's free estimates?
It is free
Okay.
estimate.
So then, and if you do the work, you'll end up doing the paperwork for the homeowner, so they get the rebate directly.
They don't have to leave their house. I do it all.
Oh, even easier.
I do it all.
Okay, so that helps a lot. So now moving up to the main floor, there's a lot of people say, "Hey, I sit at my kitchen table in the morning. I feel a cold draft. I feel cold air everywhere." You come to the house, they tell you this. It's not news to you.
No.
How do you prescribe, or what do you do for the homeowner in that situation?
One of the things that Dana Insulation does that many of my competitors choose not to do, we don't necessarily have a truck minimum. So if Mrs. Jones or Mr. Jones are describing, as you said, the draft in the most important room of the house, which is the kitchen,
Correct.
I'll come in and insulate the 2 walls in the kitchen.
You get that done for them.
They don't have to go do the entire home, which they did not describe as their trouble area. They described their kitchen as the trouble area. So I address their needs. The house next door, they may have totally different needs. So we try to cater
it to the homeowner.
to the specific.
Actually, I like that. That's actually a good way to do it. So plaster or drywall on the inside, vinyl windows, and then brick or siding. How do you install insulation in the wall in the areas that they need? Is there a process that you use?
Yes. Well, the brick is rather easy. It's the easiest of the 3. The sidings, the aluminum, vinyl, or brick. Brick is drilled into the mortar line between 3 bricks, 3 holes vertically every 16 inches, and slowly dense packed each stud cavity. In the case of a vinyl home, of course, we're removing or lifting vinyl at approximately the halfway level, drilling a much larger hole, a 2-inch hole, again, slowly installing for the purpose of densely packing.
So if there's fiberglass already in the wall, which pretty predominantly is.
No, not in the older homes.
Okay. So when there is, though, what you guys do is you'll spray either the foam or the cellulose?
Cellulose. We would use cellulose.
And then that will compress the fiberglass, but then fill the cavity with cellulose.
That's right.
Okay, and that helps tremendously. Now, you don't have x-ray vision.
No.
So how do you know?
Well, first of all, anybody that chooses to hire my company gets as long as they live there, warranty. Their guarantee is that those walls will remain filled from top to bottom forever.
Does it settle after time?
If it's done correctly, our calibrated machine is doing its job and my staff is doing its job, it'll remain in place forever without any settling. In the event that the client feels as though that there has been settling, I will come back out, and or a member of my team will come back out with infrared, and we'll examine the walls with infrared.
So you said infrared. That's interesting. That's that camera that shows the difference in temperature, so you can actually see where the heat loss is and where it's staying warm.
That's exactly right.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And so if somebody calls up Dana Insulation and wants you to come over and give them an assessment, do you bring an infrared camera first?
No. There's really no need for that because, to be honest with you, as long as I've done this, I can tell when I pull up in their driveway.
You know right away.
I know by the age of the home what the maximum they can. Well, the era tells you what product was manufactured at that time.
So the house built in the 50s and 60s.
The most it can be is cotton.
Yep.
Or 2 inches of fiberglass. And it's a 4-inch cavity. And the 2-inch, we don't know how many staples it had there was no inspections in those days.
Right.
It was just a builder adding on to charge more for the home.
So when you drill a hole through the mortar, let's say it's brick, do you guys recover the hole up?
Yes, we remortared it.
So over time, it's not going to match exactly when it's done, but over time, it'll fade to normal.
3 to 4 weeks, you won't
even
be
tell.
able to see.
It's all included in the job.
That's right.
Interesting. Is it a 1-2 day job or?
Each home presents a different challenge, so we schedule most wall jobs. We try to prepare the client for up to 2 days, but we share with them. We believe we can get it done in 1.
Depending on how difficult.
It depends on weather. There's a number of factors.
Yeah.
But we prepare the client for a 2-day project.
Interesting. So they're prepared for 2 days, but typically get a day and a half.
That's correct.
Okay. And, obviously insulation isn't sexy, but the value and the excitement is when you're done because you'll start saving energy.
Well, one of the rewards I've gotten over all these years are the phone calls that are shortly after installed projects, and where the homeowner has been kind enough to call me and say, holy cow, what a tremendous difference. Our home is functioning better. That furnace, as we just discussed earlier, is not going on and off as like it formerly was. The home is much quieter as a result of putting wall insulation.
So the neighbor's always putting the garbage out, starting the car,
or Harley guy. Or Harley
starting
guy.
the motorcycle, or the dog is barking.
Yeah.
The insulation actually reduces the sound
Tremendously.
and it becomes quieter in the house.
Tremendously.
I've heard that a lot.
And I get a kick. Sometimes I choose to share what the first noticeability will be, which is, of course, the sound. And sometimes I just let them experience it. But
it's an eerie quiet.
More often than not, they call me.
Right. So that's interesting, and that's one of the side benefits you never even thought of.
That's right.
And then when they get that first or second bill, they're like, "Oh, I can see now.
This worked."
Oh, and that's a good. And then there's a credit involved.
Well, that's wonderful. Yeah, there's again, rebates and tax credits.
So you got the basement bond plates done. We've gone up to the first floor and we've done the outer walls. What about a second floor before we get to the attic? Sometimes people say, "I have a room over the garage. My daughter's closet in the back corner is freezing all the time." Is there a solution for that?
Wow, did you hit a big one. More and more homes are built with what they refer to as bonus rooms, which are above garages. And builders are just going to minimum code, which is an R30 fiberglass in that area. And I'm going to tell you that room becomes next to useless because it gets so cold.
Right.
Now, there are, two different options. One is much lesser costing. We can drill into these floor joist and fill them. They only have fiberglass insulation. We can compress all that and put in a much better product, which is cellulose. For the really enthusiastic client who just has to have this improved and has to have it improved now, we yank down the drywall and start fresh and use foam. And that's a game changer.
So real quickly, if you're a homeowner who has a bedroom or a bonus room or a closet,
bathroom,
anything over a garage, and there's a lot of houses that were built that way.
That's right.
Dana Insulation can fix that in several ways.
Yes.
And that will solve that problem right away.
That's no doubt about it.
And that seems to be, I've heard that a lot.
Yeah.
So there's a solution for that.
I walked up to a home about 2 years ago, a new build, and a homeowner was acting as his own GC. And when I got there, I didn't say, "Hello, how are you? My name is Tom Mackey from Dana." I looked at him with my finger wagging and said, "You're putting a bonus room above that garage. I will not I won't even quote your job unless you promise me you're going to let me do that bonus room the right way from the beginning." He said, "What does that mean?" I said, "It's going to be way more expensive than what's in your budget, but you're going to have a room you can use forever."
Right.
That man still calls me and thanks me every day.
Because he knows other people that have done that.
His next door, his neighbor, his brother next door, who didn't get that sage advice, can't use that room.
Interesting. Yeah. But he can fix it if you come in, but you have to do destruction a little bit to get it done.
That's right.
And typically when you do that, it's air sealing. You're sealing the air
exactly
so it gets it out.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah. Makes sense to me. So when it does something like that, if someone's building a new house, can you do new construction for people?
I only do customs.
Okay.
And the customs are when I get an opportunity, my builder allows me to sit with the client, explain all the different options, which range from minimum builder's grade on up to the best, what I would put in my own home. And more often than not, the clients enjoy that experience. They enjoy the ability to participate and to make the choices, and they also upgrade most of the time.
Right, and it makes sense.
Yeah.
With the tax credits, with the benefits of the savings, and the peripheral benefits, I'll call quieter home,
yes,
more comfortable. It makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So that's fun for us. We do probably 20 homes per year, and they're substantial. They're big homes, and some of the things that are very important, some sound attenuation in restrooms, laundry rooms, between bedrooms, stuff that Mr. and Mrs. Jones would never think of.
Yeah, let me ask you a question. If there's always a sound transmission. Insulation is used quite often for deadening or slowing down the transmission of
That's
sound.
right.
And if someone has that issue, they can call you as well.
That's right. It's another great facet of our business.
Interesting. So Tom, we talked about the basement and the bond plate. We've talked about insulating the walls. We've talked about solving problems in a bedroom or a bathroom or a closet over a garage. Now we're into the attic. And as we know, heat rises and heat goes up through the attic, and that's how it gets out of the house the fastest. So when there's insulation in the attic, that slows it down. But typically, houses that have been built by custom builders or production builders, it's never been enough insulation. You know that as well.
That's true.
So 6 inches of insulation is pretty much average. Do you have to take that out, or can you go right over it?
Now, very rarely do you ever have to remove. The only time you're really going to have to remove is if there's been any wildlife up in that attic.
Okay.
So the insulation is fine. It's just below standard. So you'd be adding to get to the today's standard.
So when you come into a homeowner's house and they feel like they want to just do the attic, or part of it is the attic, do you go into the attic? How do you measure from? What do you do for them?
Yeah, I'm able to look into virtually any attic, tell you what the material is, what its efficiency rating is, check and see if there's baffling or proper ventilation throughout that attic area, and then tell the client what would be needed to get it up to the optimum R49.
So ventilation, you mentioned. How important is ventilation?
Equally as important as insulation.
So the insulation product, ventilation is just as important as the actual
They
product.
work in harmony.
Now, you know how that affects roofing as well.
Of course.
It could ruin your roof if your
That's
house
right.
isn't ventilated properly.
Most folks don't even realize, if the do-it-yourselfers scare me the most, because they don't understand that if they have any form of insulation touching that roof deck, they will void out their warranty on their shingles.
Oh.
And baffling becomes so important. Ventilation is so important.
Explain for the listener or the viewer what baffling means.
Baffling is generally 4 foot in length and the width of your stud cavity or your rafter cavity. And it's allowing air to flow from the bottom up to the roof vents or ridge vent, whatever the roofer has installed. And secondly, and equally as important, it's allowing insulators to insulate perfectly even. You asked early in the show what has changed over the years. In 1977, when I started, we tapered insulation to the edge, which was crazy because it caused so many
problems. Didn't know any better, right?
Yeah, well, we knew we couldn't have insulation touch the roof deck. So we used a taper method. Now we can make it even because of baffling.
The insulation's like a blanket on the floor of the attic.
That's right.
But around the edge, you need air to come in and then go up to the peak.
That's right.
And that barrier allows the heat to stay in. And then as the heat rises from the ceiling, that insulation slows it down to almost nothing.
That's exactly right.
Okay. And is that the majority of your work still?
The attics will always be the number one what customers are most interested in.
So if a homeowner wants to save energy and they call you out, you'll look at everything.
Whatever they want me to look at. And as a matter of habit, I explain to them my background. I explain to them that I believe it's in their best interest that I share my experience and knowledge with them. What they do with that is entirely up to them. But I make them much more knowledgeable by the time I leave.
So if someone says to you, all right, I want to do everything you recommend, and they go ahead with the project, from the day they say go ahead to when you actually do the work, how long is that?
3 to 4 weeks.
Okay, so that's average.
Yeah.
So that's not bad. And then it's about a day and a half job sometimes.
That's right.
Okay, well, that's pretty good information. And then if somebody has questions about different types of insulation, your company, Dana Insulation, is equipped to handle any kind of insulation.
That's accurate.
And is it different, the closed cell foam insulation different from the walls in the attic, or?
Closed cell foam I would never use in a attic environment.
Okay.
New construction, I would consider it, but your budget is going to go up dramatically. So conventional means of insulating attics is still, in my eyes, the correct way to go. It is an option, however.
And cellulose is the number one choice for that.
Yeah, it's by far the best choice.
Okay. And basically, for everyone out there, R value is the capacity of insulating material to resist heat heat flow. The higher the R value, the greater the insulating power.
That's right.
Best way to insulate. So if you want insulation in your house, visit danainsulation.com or go to hireitdone.com. There's a link in the bio for you to get pricing on insulation. Tom, thanks for coming in today.
Thank you for having me.
We'll eventually go out and see some work and actually show people how it's done.
I'd love that. That'd be great.
Subscribe to the podcast and we'll give you a notice when we're out there to get you some real footage of insulation being installed.
What you got?